What's going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. If you're just tuning into the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please take some time to do so. Fun video today, guys, talking about 5 tips on how to purchase comic books. How to be smart in purchasing comic books. Because at the end of the day, there's no wrong or right way to purchase comic books, but there is a way that can keep you enjoying the hobby and keep you, say, happy and fulfilled with your purchases rather than being kind of burnt out or feeling like you've made some bad purchases and bad choices along the way. I did a video about a week or so ago giving tips on how to sell comic books. I had some comments in there asking, hey, what about tips on how to buy comic books? So I have 5 main tips that we're going to talk about, guys. So let's go into it. I probably talk about all of these tips in a lot of my videos just randomly as we talk about comics and the hobby that we love. And the first tip, the first thing that everyone needs to understand, no matter what they collect or why they collect or how they collect, you need to know why you collect comics and what types of comics speak to you. And this goes back to the age-old question of, are you a reader? Are you what I like to call a hoarder, which I am a proud hoarder of comic books? Are you a seller, a flipper? Are you a little bit of all of the above? I talk about that a lot. I have a little bit of all these things. I'm a bit of a speculator. I'm a bit of a hoarder where I don't sell really. I'm a reader. I read my books too. I collect for the art. So you really have to understand what you love about comics. I always say this too. There's something out there for everyone. Not everything within the comic book hobby has to be specifically for you. There can be some things that are for you, some things that aren't. But for the next person, they may enjoy the things that you don't, and they may not enjoy the things that you do. You see how that works? So for me, if I don't want to go off and spend $50, $100 to $200 on some 1 in 25 variant, that's fine. I don't have to. But the next person that enjoys variants, they can absolutely do that if that makes them happy. So that's the first tip. No matter what you collect or how you collect, you need to understand why. Why do you collect comics? What is important to you about the hobby? Okay. Number 2, create a budget and follow it. Now, unless you're a millionaire, and your expendable income has no cap room, I mean, I think all of us really are collectors on a budget. And, even folks, even folks that are wealthy, that are extremely well off, you probably still want to budget what you're spending on comic books because, look, we all have expenses, right? This is if you're young or you're old, if you're a college student, if you're living at home, if you're, 50 years old, raising a family, it doesn't matter. You got to figure out what works for you and how much money you can spend. This ties into really understanding how you collect as well. So let me give you an example of what I do. And I've talked about this before as well. I do get previews orders every month. So I pre-order new books that come out each month, right? That part of me as a collector collects new books. I don't spend too much. I probably spend anywhere on average from $25 to $50 a month on new books. Everything else is back issues. And I've talked about this before. Pre-COVID, I wouldn't really go to comic book stores unless it was like an A1 comic sale or a Comic Command Center sale. I save my money that I budget for back issues when these stores are having sales because it allows me to maximize my budget, right? And then I'll have a budget for key books, right? So say, and I'm just throwing a number out there, say A1 Comics has a sale every 3 months, right? I spend $25 to $50 a month on my new releases. And I spend $9.99 a month on my digital Marvel Unlimited so I could still have sources to read because I'm a reader. But then say I'll allocate $200 for back issues every 3 months, right? So that breaks down to about, $70 a month that I might allocate for specifically back issues. And then I might allocate a certain amount of money for, say, a key book. So if I have sights on a book that's a key book that I've been after for a while, and say it's $500, I might not be able to buy it right away. I might have to allocate, say, $50 a month or $100 a month, to where I can set my sights on purchasing it 5 months or 6 months down the road or something like that, right? Or I might say, I'm going to pass on going to an A1 Comics sale next month, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to spend it on a nice key that I've been, setting my sights on. So again, these are just some examples of how I budget. You always have to budget your finances. At the end of the day, this is a very, very expensive hobby, and those expenses can add up. So you got to be smart. But again, you really have to pair it to how you collect. There's the FOMO aspect, where if you're really in it to because you don't want to miss out on the spec books, because you want to have some type of focus on return on investment, then maybe you do a little something else that brings in revenue to allocate a larger budget month to month, and that might mean flipping comics. Y'all can go refer to my other video on tips about that. But let's move on now, guys. Next, and this is probably, besides the first one, the most important one to me, and that's do your research, guys. Do your research. And the fourth point is going to tie into this, but doing your research, it's really on anything. Obviously, specifically on key books or high dollar books. If you're spending 10, 15, 20 plus dollars on, say, one book, do your research. But I say this for even, run filler books. It might be just $2, $3 books. Do your research, research the market, check eBay sold, check Go Collect, Cover Price, Overstreet, right? Even a key collector app. Check however many sources that you can to see what the fair market value of a specific book is. If you have multiple LCSs in your location that you can frequent, that you can go to, call them up. If you're looking for a specific book, if you don't even want to go there, call them, say, hey, do you have this book, and how much are you selling it for? What's the grade? Or go to multiple locations before you actually pull the trigger, right? You have to understand what you're willing to pay for the book. You can't just look at the first thing that you see, especially if you're just scrolling eBay for a book. You can't just look at that first thing that you see and say, oh, there it is, I'm just going to buy it. And then you look at another source, after you purchase it, and realize that you just spent $100 on the book that really has a fair market value of only $50. And then, then a week from then, you go to your local LCS when you bought this book for $100 off of eBay, and you see it at your LCS for $60, and you're like, man, now you shot yourself in the foot because you didn't do your homework. You have to do your research to understand fair market value, and that leads me into the fourth tip. That is, you have to have patience. Patience is key, and it ties right into doing your research. Patience is absolutely key, and I will look at as an example, when I was in the market for my Amazing Spider-Man 129, okay? Now, I did my research, right? I checked fair market value. I was understanding what the market was doing and what was fair for me to pay for all grades across the board. But then I had patience, because I told myself, I don't want to go lower than this certain grade, but I don't want to go higher than this price. So I set myself this kind of a wiggle room of grade versus price, and I waited and I waited to pull the trigger until I found one within that grade range and that price range, and it worked out for me. Now, having patience is always a matter of playing with the market, to where if you sit on something too long, the market can decide that the value of that book is going to continue to increase, and maybe you miss out. But look, in my opinion, it's better to have patience than to jump the gun and do something that you'll regret, which leads into our fifth tip. Don't you love how these all correlate? It's like a domino effect, right? Fifth tip, number 5, understand the risk and the reward involved. which means you have to make a purchase and be content with it. And I talk about this a lot. There's always risk and reward involved, especially if you're talking about high dollar amount books and key books. I mean, what type of risk is there if you're digging in 50-cent bins or dollar bins? Hey, but when you're talking about books that have a inherent value, you're putting money out, you're really breaking your bank to purchase these books. There's a risk and there's a reward. If you're not willing to take the risk, then the reward probably isn't going to be worth it anyways, right? So you got to really balance that out. And, you can look at a lot of these sub-markets, like the variant market, right? And you could say, well, there's this new, say, 1 in 50 variant that just came out. And right now, in a 9.8, it's selling for 150. There's FOMO involved. I really want this book. Ask yourself, do you really enjoy collecting variants? Are you just looking to flip it? You have to ask yourself, if I spend $150 on this book, and then in a week from now, that fair market value drops down to $80, am I going to be able to live with myself? And a perfect example, if you guys watch our Comic Book Canon show that we do live every Friday night, link below, you will see that a lot of these 1 in 25, 1 in 100 variants, the first week of release, that they're selling for that premium amount, but then they'll cool off. I mean, they'll still hold at a threshold of a solid value, but they will cool off for the most part. So you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? It's just like going into a casino. You could go into a casino with $100. You can go into a casino with $1,000, and no matter what you walk in there with, you have a risk and reward. You have the risk of coming out with no money in your pocket, the same amount of money in your pocket, a couple dollars less, a couple dollars more, or a lot of money more, a lot of dollars more if you hit the jackpot. And that's the risk that you have to be willing to take. It is a gamble, as always. So everything you do, don't ever make a decision without understanding the risk involved. You have to be content, or you're going to burn yourself out on the hobby, and it's going to become unenjoyable for you. So that's my advice, guys. Let's go over the 5 tips again. Number 1, ask yourself, why do you collect comics? What's in it for you? What do you love about the hobby? You have to understand that. And look, that could change over time. We evolve. My collecting styles has changed and evolved over time, and that's perfectly fine as long as when you're doing it, you are enjoying how you're doing it. Number 2, create a budget and follow it. We all have a budget. We all have bills to pay, kids to feed, expenses, and probably other things that we enjoy in life. Maybe eating out once in a while, having good food, going on vacation, whatever it may be. We don't want to spend all of our money on comic books, right? I don't know. Maybe some of us do. All right. But hey, look, responsibilities first and foremost. Roof over our head. If you got kids, don't go starving your kids just to buy some comic books. All right. Rule number 3 again, do your research. Always do your research. I talk about this all the time. There's so many sources out there, and don't just trust one source. Always use multiple sources. 4, have patience. Without patience, you can make a lot of mistakes that you might regret in the long run, which again ties into number 5. Understand the risk and reward involved. And from there, guys, just enjoy the hobby. Enjoy what you love. And hey, look, collect what you're passionate about. In the words of our good friend OMG Chris, I will continue to say that as long as I have this platform on YouTube. Collect what you're passionate about. Hey, share it with the community. Share it on Instagram. Share it on YouTube. I hope that these tips helped you guys. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. And again, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. Check out all the affiliates and their links below as well. And again, as always, be well, be safe, be kind to yourselves, and be kind to each other. Until next time.